Hello, welcome back to History of Wine and the Vine. I'm Emily Kate. So this week we'll be discussing ancient hangovers. So clearly this is a problem that wine drinkers have been dealing with for as long as we've been drinking wine. And it's very interesting to kind of look at the different styles of combating it that people had, and the reasons that they believed were behind it, because a lot of these kind of echo what we believe today. So first off, we're going to be discussing mainly today ancient Greece, and there was definitely a focus towards moderation there. So I have a quote from Plutarch, the Greek playwright, and he says, "If the headache only came to us before we drank to intoxication, no one would ever indulge himself in wine immoderately." Now, first of all, probably true. And second of all, moderately, immoderately, moderation. This is such a huge theme in ancient Greece. There was actually, at the Temple of Delphi, there was this big inscription that was this mantra of the ancient Greeks, which said nothing to excess and nothing in excess. And this was very important, and actually they definitely took it to heart in terms of watering down their wines to kind of mitigate the kind of terrible effects of the hangover and the headaches that came with it. So I've read in many places that a Greek hangover was actually being perfectly fine the next morning and not having a headache, having a clear mind. So clearly what they were doing was working, and that was watering down quite a bit. So actually, in terms of people who didn't water it down, the Greeks definitely only had respect and definitely revered people who were able to drink wine neat, not watered down, and not have the effects. And there's actually in a port in Athens, there's someone named Acrotopes, and he actually has a shrine dedicated to him based off the fact that he was able to drink a lot of wine neat and not feel the effects. So clearly very revered to have a shrine after you. So they definitely had none too much respect though for people who did drink too much, and they said that drinking too much was not drinking wine but swimming in it. So clearly not very respected. If you look at Plato's Symposium, when they're kind of discussing how much to water down the wine, generally this was the decision of the symposiarch, but here he's kind of letting everyone weigh in, and they all exclaim that they're really not feeling like drinking a lot of wine, so they really water down what they're drinking. And it's much more about kind of like loosening up and discussing rather than getting drunk. That was more of an ancient Roman kind of ordeal. So because they wanted these kind of like headache-free wine bouts, they had a specific couple of wines that they believed were headache-free. And these wines were Chian, Thasian, Biblian, and Mendaean wines. And these were advertised and bought as headache-free wines, hangover-free wines, which someone ought to bring back. I think everyone can agree that would be nice. And it was so kind of interlinked, the idea of headaches and wine, that ancient medics like Hippocrates would actually ban materia medica that was to treat headaches from being administered with wine. So generally all of your kind of medicine was administered with wine, and he said that nothing having to do with headaches could be prescribed with wine because it would just exacerbate the headache and you wouldn't be solving anything. So definitely watering down was not only part of the symposium, but part of also if you were an average Joe who was getting your kind of your wine from a street cart, which was generally how it happened, it would always be watered down. And this really wasn't just, you know, swindling on the part of the cart owner, but it was actually because people preferred this. They didn't want to get too drunk. They didn't want to have a bad hangover. Now, everybody blamed pitch, which is heated resin, for their hangovers, and Pliny was on a tear about this and was always spouting off about how the Italians treated their wine with headache pitch, and how this was what the problem was, and that these were poisons and blah blah blah. Kind of similar to how people feel about sulfites today, but you know, today we're not using pitch and we still have that. So clearly we've not figured out a great way to preserve the wine without people thinking that it's giving them a headache. So as well, we also have Cato who backs him up with that. just by the way. So how do people combat hangovers? Well, there are a couple of ways. Before you actually drank the wine, Emperor Tiberius' son swore by getting a handful of bitter almonds and eating them all right before he drank. And he claimed that this completely mitigated his hangover, and it made sure that he didn't get too drunk. Then we also have Philocrates, who kind of prescribes a bit of the hair of the dog that bit you, so having a bit of wine the next day. And then we also have the idea, and I have an image here, it's the flowers of henna, hazelwort, and saffron. And if you could, they were all about kind of opening the pores to vent the wine's fumes from your body, and they believe that smelling roses and violets and kind of smelling these different things, and here's just some henna, I don't know what it looks like, and they were all about kind of smelling these things, these flowers, lulling yourself to sleep with these smells, and then the next morning you would supposedly not actually have too bad of a hangover. So I hope that this kind of was interesting for you. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up right below. And if you'd like to learn more, definitely hit subscribe. And I will see you next week. Cheers!